Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. It is still Women's History Month, a robust month where we get to celebrate women who are celebrating each other, whose stories will inspire us to leap into our dreams. Dreamleapers is all about helping people to access those dreams inside and go for it. Do the work to make their dreams manifest and not just talk about it or think about it, but put it into action. And so today's guest, I'm so excited to have with me a dear friend, a woman I've known for many years who has written not her first, but her second book that is all about inspiring us to leap into our greatness. Let me tell you a bit about my guest. Her name is Michelle Gadsden-Williams. She's the managing director and global head of diversity, equity, and inclusion for BlackRock. She's an award-winning global diversity executive, author, activist, producer, and philanthropist with more than 25 years of experience as an advocate for equality within corporate America and a thought leader around diversity and inclusion. Michelle is a seasoned diversity practitioner with experience working in the consumer goods, pharmaceutical, and financial services industries before transitioning to professional services in 2017. That's just a little bit about her. I want you to meet her. We're going to talk about her new book and just about being a powerful woman at this moment in corporate America. So please join me in welcoming Michelle Gadsden-Williams.
Harriette, I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your show.
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say I'm so proud of you. And, your book is all about intention.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of something. So I will share with you my best friend from growing up in Baltimore, who I've remained very close to over all these years. Her name is Lejeune Terry Cornish. And she just became the president of Ithaca College, by the way, the first Black female president of that school. But as we were growing up, young adults, we started talking about the importance of being conscious and intentional.
Mm.
And this would be our weekend conversation, or if something was happening and we were feeling down, we would invoke these two words. Well, this idea of being conscious and intentional and explore it. And when I not just seeing the title of your book, but started reading your book, it so resonated with me because I do think it's at the core level of mapping out a life of success. How did you come to this idea of intentionality and being so important?
Well, similar to the conversations that you've had with your girlfriend, when I take a step back and reflect on my career and my life and all the decisions that I've made over the years, the common denominator amongst all of those decisions was this notion of intentionality. And so over the years, what I've done is, just ask some of my girlfriends who are wildly successful in their careers and in their lives, what was that foundation? What was it specifically that was the catalyst or the foundation in terms of your success? And intention came up quite frequently. And so I've just been fascinated with the word, with the term, what it means. And so again, when I take a step back and think about my own career and the choices that I've made, intentionality was really at the heart of it all.
And your book is called Driven by Intention. Own your purpose, gain power, and pursue your passion as a woman at work. Very, very strong, very clear. One of the first things that you write about in the book is the difference between intentions and goals.
Mm.
Can you explain the difference?
Absolutely. Well, in my own words, intention is really a choice with a commitment. And it really starts with going inward and understanding your why. I always say it's that spark that ignites the fire within each of us, not only to have an aim or a goal and to deliver on it, but to be purposeful and planful about it. And so I think it's really a clear representation of who we are and who we aspire to be. But more importantly, I think it addresses why do you want to do something and how you plan to get it done. So simply put, I think it's our motivation. It's really that inner voice that guides everything that we do. It's that unshakable desire to be a goal setter, an impact seeker, or a dream chaser, as I say. So it's equal emphasis on why and how. But when I think about a goal is really finite. There's an end point to it. Intention really is integrated into everything in terms of who you are as an individual. And so there really is no end point. So it's really a choice with a commitment. It's really a way of life and a way of choreographing the course of your life and how you plan for it.
And I like the differentiation too, because goals are important as well. You know, you can have your intention, and maybe underneath of it there are goals to get you there that you can check off. But if you don't have the intention, which is a driver, the bigger vision, right? If you don't have that
Absolutely.
bigger vision, then the goals become the be all and end all and may not even take you as high as you could possibly go.
Absolutely. But I think the difference here is intention distinguishes those individuals who truly seek their goals from those who get stuck when
Mm.
they encounter obstacles, and those who are unable to move past the things that are blocking them. So there is a real difference in my perspective.
And you know, one of the things that I appreciate about the stories that you tell, and are there 14 women who are profiled?
Yes. Yep.
14 women who are very different from each other who are profiled in your book. And, you know, I appreciate the fact that you get into their stories, into the real of their stories.
Mhm.
And you know, one of the things that I'm sure you have had as an experience, Michelle, because you are on stage often, the person talking, the person being interviewed, you know, the person at a very high level. I know I have this experience of when I'm on stage, the people in the audience often think, oh, well, she's different. You
Mm.
know, her life is magical. She's different. She's been able to accomplish all these things. But even successful people will sometimes say, but you know, she's far and above ahead of me, which I completely think is wrong. The only difference often is just how much work you put in. But what you describe in your book, in sharing these people's stories, is how the journey definitely is not a straight line. It's often
Absolutely.
quite circuitous and humbling. Humility is a through line in your book. Uh, First of all, I want you to tell us how you were able to get women to share so much, to be so vulnerable, to tell so much truth about their journey.
Well, I think the women that I've interviewed in the book, these were women that I knew. These are women that are in my ecosystem.
Good.
The common denominator among these women, and including myself, was this notion of really understanding who we are. And I think a lot of us, I think every woman in the book, they're all very much um, very grounded in terms of who they are as individuals and how they show up in the world. And let me take a step back for a moment, because I think the foundation of intentionality for me,
Hmm.
this was something that was instilled in my two sisters and I very early on. And so growing up, my parents, my father specifically, would ask us some very specific questions. He would ask us, you know, or he would say, quite honestly, we are not here on this earth to take up space.
All
We're
right.
here to make a difference, and it's up to each of us to determine what that difference is. And his words, we are here to make a difference, that has stayed with me over the years. And it's certainly a credo that I personally live by every single day. And so I strongly believe that our thoughts and our intentions create our reality. So these women, in the stories that they shared with me, that was also how they lived their lives. And so I think these women, all very diverse, all from different industries, from media, sports, entertainment, politics, and business. And some are a variety of different backgrounds. We have Asian women, we have Caucasian women, we have Black women, brown women, you name it. I wanted to make sure that every woman reading this book saw some version of herself represented. And the common thread throughout
Mhm.
all of this is that they really wanted to leave this place, this earth, in better condition than when we entered. So they all had a North Star, and they all were very much intentional, no pun intended, in achieving whatever that North Star was. So
Mhm.
there was no straight line, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Some moved side to side, and they had some lateral moves here and there. But I think at the end of the day was really, they moved beyond just having ambition. They really wanted to uh, take advantage of the opportunities that were presented in front of them and make conscious career choices and decisions in terms of how to execute on their personal life plan.
And
So I would also say, if I can say this before
sure, please.
I close out this question, I think that with regards to intention, it's come to be accepted as the law of attraction. Also, it's
Yes.
attracting the people that we want in our lives and the things that we want to acquire, and the things that are going to bring us contentment. So I think it's this notion of intention is not just your desire to do something; it's your desire to have an ecosystem that's also rallying around you to make sure that your actions and other desires are manifested. So,
And Michelle, as you share stories, you share successes and defeats. You, as I say, you share some humiliating experiences that help people to kind of have a pause and figure out, oh, maybe I need to pivot, or there's something else that I need to do. And I think, to your point, if you have goals and then they're dashed, you may just stop. But having, like, one of the stories that I think would probably resonate with a lot of people was one of the women, you'll remind me of who it was, who had to move back home after being an adult out of college. And right now, especially even before COVID, but especially with COVID, many young adults and not so young adults have had to find their way back to their parents' homes because they could not afford to live on their own anymore. And that is tough.
yeah.
But you have living proof in your book that that can happen. And that does not mean that your life is over, your career is over. That is just a moment in time. Can you speak about humility and all that that entails?
Absolutely. And that was also another red thread amongst all these women,
Yes.
just this level and notion of humility. So the woman that you're speaking of, who had to move back home and to basically start over, that was Sherry Salata. So
Right.
Sherry, so this is a woman who has had extraordinary success in media and entertainment. This powerhouse worked for Oprah Winfrey for over 20 years. She's the former executive producer of the Oprah Winfrey Show and also president of Harpo Studios. So this is a woman who explored a number of different options early on in her career. Um, and unfortunately, she landed where most people just don't want to go back to as an adult, and that's living in her parents' basement.
Yes.
After trials and failures, she listened to her inner voice and she took a chance on herself. And she, through insatiable curiosity and leveraging her ecosystem, she was able to find her dream job in working for Oprah. So in her particular case, dreaming the outcome before it happens
Yes.
is something that she was steadfast about. She was willing to start over as many times as needed in order to create the life of her dreams. And as they say, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough.
I
And in her
love that.
case, she was dreaming big. And it's funny. Someone just mentioned this to me while we were in Los Angeles last week at the Leading Women Defined conference. Your dreams are your purest form of your potential. And
Hmm.
I firmly believe that. And in Sherry's case, her dreams were the purest form of her potential. She wanted to become a writer. She wanted to become a producer. She saw examples of what good looked like in that space. And she, after trial and error and trial and failure, she finally did it. And so dreaming
Beautiful.
the outcome before it happens was the avenue for her success.
That's so powerful. And I loved reading her story because you give enough detail in your book of people's stories so that you get a sense things do not happen fast. It is so rare for
Yep.
success to be like a shooting star
Yep. Success happens over time, not overnight.
over time,
Over
over
time.
time.
That's right.
And when people have patience and stick with it, and also, you have to have flexibility. There's so many things that you need to have. And all of this is wrapped up in your book, which is so fabulous. Let me remind folks you are listening to Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole here on WBAI in New York City. That's 99.5 FM and everywhere online at WBAI.org. We are talking to my friend, author of her second book, Michelle Gadsden-Williams, and her book is called Driven by Intention. Own your purpose, gain power, and pursue your passion as a woman at work. Really powerful and intentional title. Driven by intention. I mean, when you think about this, it's very active.
Yep.
Driven by intention. And what does it mean when you do
Yeah.
that? And these stories of 14 women who have taken the time and as you said, they're part of your ecosystem, so they trusted you to share their truth. I think that part of what is, I think, will just be helpful for anybody, but especially for young women who are looking to build their lives, to read these stories, because it shows you if there's a bump along the way, and not if, when there's a
Right.
bump along the way,
That's right.
and then another bump along the way. Well, okay, you pick yourself up and figure it out, right, Michelle? I mean that
Exactly. And Harriet, I think for many of us, um, intention keeps us in the present moment of our lives in terms of where we are, and where we want to be. And for a lot of us, achievement, was the expectation by our parents and
yeah,
teachers
oh,
and other
absolutely.
people. And for those are the individuals who really set the path for us. And so I think the cumulative effect of putting one foot in front of the other, that's the result of fulfilling the promise that others have for us. Intention, however, that's fulfilling the promise that you have for yourself. What
Mm.
are some of the kinds of things that you need to do in order to get to your next? So it's really flexing a different set of muscles. That's what intention really is. And it's really interesting. You mentioned the next generation of women. I really wrote this book for the next generation of female leaders
I
to
feel that.
realize their ambition and their potential. And I've spent countless hours with mentees and proteges of young professionals who wanted advice in terms of how to navigate their careers. And a lot of the conversation that I have with them is really anchored and rooted in this notion of intentionality. And so now we're here. And so I think that, intention is really just a core part of a core principle in my
Sure.
life. And I just wanted to share that with others.
And let's talk about your career a little bit, Michelle, because you, as a woman and as an African American woman, working in corporate America and in finance for quite a bit of your career, this is not a field that is flooded with women or with Black women, especially in the time that you have been coming up. It I am sure you have been the only or one of the only, and many women who are tuned in now may still feel that they're one of the only. Sadly, that hasn't changed as much as we would like for it to.
Mhm.
What tactics did you use to be able to survive and thrive when in those moments when you may have been judged, sized up based upon your gender and race? How were you able uh, to stay strong and hold your intention?
That's a great question, Harriet. I truly believe that it's just, having role models at home. My father's a retired executive. My mother is an entrepreneur. So I knew by the time that I was 7 years old, I knew that I wanted to have a career in corporate America because that's what I saw. That those were the role models that were in the household.
Right.
I didn't know what industry I wanted to pursue. All that I knew is that I wanted to be that suit wearing, powerful person who made decisions and who created these process flows and flow charts and all the things I would see my father creating at the dining room table. So I knew that I wanted to embark on a career in corporate America. For me, though, I also pivoted left and right. I started my career in marketing, and then I went into human resources and some other things. They say, look, he who dares, dares greatly, because I also did the things that scared me the most. And I pursued opportunities that would stretch and flex different muscles that I wasn't quite used to. I'm good at math. I'm not great at math. And so it's interesting that I chose careers where STEM is pivotal to your success. You have to be an analytic in financial services. You have to be great at science. I worked in the pharma industry for 20 years. So I purposefully chose industries that would test who I was and my contribution in a lot of ways. And that was my intention. I really wanted to do the things that scare me the most. And they say he who dares, dares greatly. And I was daring to do and having the audacity to walk into these places and spaces and wanting to be an executive. And so I knew that I had to do all the extras because I had deficits in terms of, finance and analytics and all of those kinds of things. So I was intentional about doing the things that were really going to stretch me and create, help me to create the individual that I wanted to be in corporate America. So I fell into it in a way. I fell into big pharma. I fell into financial services in some ways because my father's not a banker, neither is my mother. They worked in corporate America, but financial services was an industry that I didn't know much about. I had friends who worked in the industry, and there weren't many people who looked like me in the industry. And again, doing the things that scare you the most. I said, I want to do that. I want to do the work that I love in diversity practice in industries that I'm not familiar with. And that was really my entree into professional services and then ultimately financial services.
What have you done to support yourself, protect yourself in those moments of doubt? Because everyone has doubt. We know this. Yeah. And especially when you are in a space that is pushing you as far as you can be pushed and where you're often the only, how do you shore yourself up?
I'd say so there are a couple of things. Having an ecosystem of sister friends who I call on when things are hard and things are tough and I'm not quite feeling quite up to snuff, where they will lift me up and say, you can do it. You're built for this. So having that support system has been incredibly helpful to me. Self-care. I have 2 chronic illnesses that I manage, and it's been difficult. I have systemic lupus erythematosus, which is commonly known as lupus, and I also have rheumatoid arthritis, and I take medication every day. And so my wellness is extremely important to me because I want to be here, and I want to thrive, and I want to do all of the things that I want to do, and I want to be around for the long haul. So there are just some things that are just not helpful to me, like stress is not helpful to me. Traveling extreme, just extreme travel schedules, not good for me. So I've been steadfast in really maintaining and being disciplined about self-care and having guardrails around me and parameters in terms of how I'm going to live my professional life. And so I think it's really all about self-care and having a support system that works for you.
So Michelle, to that point, and I appreciate the fact that you talk about the fact that you do have 2 chronic illnesses. Many times people hide the things that are wrong with them, or that challenge them, I should say. When you first learned that you had these illnesses, I can imagine that it was quite a blow. I mean, you're building your career, and when your body doesn't serve you, you come to a screeching halt and have to, reassess. what was that process like for you when you discovered here is an obstacle in the road that I can't just take a pill and it goes away?
Well, your health is fragile.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I had to learn that the hard way. Like most young professionals, I was pushing myself to the limits. At one point in my career, I was commuting back and forth to Switzerland every week because I
Remember
saw
that?
my colleagues doing it and I saw our CEO doing it. And I thought that was the right thing to do. I mean, who does that? Commuting from Newark Airport to Zurich, Switzerland every week, Sunday through Thursday, coming home on the weekends and repeating the same routine. And I did that for 2 years. Looking back on that now, and that was a while ago,
Yeah.
how crazy is that? But these are some of the choices that we make in order to prove our worth. And you see your colleagues and other people doing it. Well, it might be good for them, but it might not be good for you. And so ultimately, my lupus diagnosis I believe it was 2006 when I was diagnosed. I probably had it for most of my life. I just did not know what it was because it is very difficult to diagnose. That diagnosis gave me pause because I was not well. I was not feeling well. I was having all kinds of symptoms and ignored it. I
Mm,
was having all kinds of hair loss and didn't understand why. I just thought it was stress. So you tend to excuse all that away and continue, going down this path of, well, I am a global vice president, and maybe that's just stress. So I was excusing it away.
right.
And that diagnosis really gave me pause to take a step back and to think about what's important to me. And in saying to myself, I want to be here for the long haul. I want to be here for myself. I want to be here for my spouse. I want to be here for my family. And there are things that I want to do. And so I remember at one point when my health was really being, challenged by the illness. I remember my doctor saying to me, if you don't slow down, you will not see your 50th birthday.
Wow.
And when he said those words to me, I went home that night and I said, I've got to do something different. Yes, career is important. Yes, having the big job and all of that, that's important. But I have to be able to manage this in a way that's going to be meaningful for me. And I needed help doing that. So I sought the help of a life coach. So AJ Johnson, the actress on television, and she has her own show now, a life therapy on, I forget which network it's on now.
Mhm.
I believe it's TV1. But at any rate, I called her. I knew her through a friend, and I've known of her success as a life coach and a wellness coach and all of those things. And I called her and I flew her to Switzerland and said, you've got to help me. I want to be here. I want to live. I want to be healthy. And she helped me. She came several times to Switzerland and she examined my calendaring and how I was living my executive life and said, this is crazy. Who has back-to-back meetings from 7 in the morning to 6 at night with barely a bathroom break? Like, who does that? So I had to learn some hard lessons and I had to do things differently. And a lot of those lessons that she taught me, and this is going back at least a decade, I still implement a lot of those lessons today. I eat clean. I exercise regularly. Yes, I do take medication, and that helps to maintain my wellness. But
Sure.
at the end of the day, it's really about maintaining a stress-free life where you can. So life is good these days. So I've had to put
That's
some things in
wonderful.
place for myself in order to be well.
And by the way, what you just described, who does this? Very sadly, Michelle, so
Yeah,
many people did that
yeah,
during COVID. And
yeah,
I'm going to say I was one of them sitting in front of the screen. I think we felt like we had to work. Anybody who was working was grateful to work. And I remember having Zoom after Zoom after Zoom. So the only one I would be on time for was the first one because even if you're not moving, you have to turn one off and turn another one on. Bathroom break, stand up break. My legs started hurting and I said, uh-uh. Bathroom, what is that? Not even moving my legs. My watch was screaming, time to stand up. I was not, I mean, have everything in place and still don't follow it. So I would imagine that your discipline probably served you very well
yeah. But
during
there's
this
a hard
period.
lesson in that, Harriet, though, because chasing success can be a bankrupt activity. It really can be.
Ooh,
It really can be. And
that
I had
is
to learn the hard way. I learned some hard lessons. I'll never
mhm,
forget years ago. I was living in Switzerland at the time, and we had an executive meeting in Barcelona. And a colleague of mine We were getting off the plane and we were walking through the airport, and the voice of God, they called her name over the intercom, and she had to pick up a house phone. So I was walking with her to go to a house phone. Long story short, it was her husband calling to say that her 14-year-old daughter didn't wake up for school that morning. The poor young woman had a massive heart attack in her sleep. She had a heart ailment. She was born with a hole in
She
her heart,
passed away?
and she passed away. And imagine getting that phone call
Oh,
at the airport. This woman fell to the floor, to her knees. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. And I said, life is short. Life is short. And this woman, and since then, I have reimagined what executive living, what it means to be an executive, and what success really looks like.
that's amazing. Let me remind folks, you are listening to Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole here on WBAI in New York City. That's 99.5 FM and everywhere online at WBAI.org. We are talking to author of her second book, Michelle Gadsden-Williams, who is talking to us about her book, Driven by Intention. And I want to remind all of you here, this is a covenant. We come together in this way once a week for my show, Dreamleapers. I bring people on who my intention is for them to inspire you to leap into your dreams. Not to just go, oh, wow, this is a fabulous person, but to really get a sense of what is stirring within you that you can then take that forward. And certainly Michelle is doing that for us right now. WBAI has been providing inspiring content for, I think this is the 62nd year. It's amazing. A public radio station that takes no advertising, only support from listeners. Didn't go out of business during COVID, didn't go out of business during all these different ebbs and flows that we've had because of the value that we place on the content, on the people who come and share their stories and inspire us. And in honor of Women's History Month, WBAI has put together a thumb drive. It's very small and it's filled with thousands of bits of content all about amazing women in history. And I love that because, again, just like Black History Month, there are usually 3 or 4 people we know about. Women's History Month, there are 3 or 4 people we know about. But there are so many incredible women who have made a mark on our culture and society and have had an impact on who we are. And imagine you can hear them telling their stories. You can hear people talking about them. One of those women is the writer and thinker June Jordan, who was an amazing political thinker, womanist, really powerful voice in the womanist, feminist movement. And when I was working at Essence Magazine years ago, I produced a photo shoot conversation between her and Angela Davis. I'll never forget it because we went to her house in California. It was so beautiful. And sitting in this gorgeous setting with the trees that you could see through these glass walls, she was speaking truth to power, letting us understand the power of women, and we cannot give it away. We must hold that intention, as Michelle is saying. And we have to teach that to our children so that they understand you're not walking into this world by yourself. There's so many voices and activists who have stood up for us and paved a way for us to have an opportunity to be free, to fly, and to pursue our dreams and fulfill them. So just like Michelle's book, Driven by Purpose, this thumb drive is filled with so many stories of women. And you can have it by joining us as a BAI buddy. This is a monthly contribution for as little as $15 a month. That's pennies. Pennies are important, and very important to WBAI. But with a donation of as little as $15 a month and as much as you would like, you can request this thumb drive and a WBAI tote bag that we happily share with you. You will be educated. You can share with your families, and you can help us keep the lights on and keep all the things going that make us be able to bring programming to you. So if you'd like to become a BAI buddy, please call us at 212-209-2950. I'll repeat that. It's 212-209-2950. You can also go online and give to the numeral 2 WBAI.org and just follow the prompts and let them know what you want to do. You can become a BAI buddy in honor of Dreamleapers. If you are digging this show, let us know that. And it could also just be in honor of the whole radio station. We appreciate you. I appreciate you coming to commune with me and my guests. And remember, the number is 212-209-2950. So I want to go back now to my friend Michelle talking about driven by intention. And, we need to pause, slow down in order to even figure out our intention sometimes. I'm a big believer in meditation because it makes you stop and listen. You've talked about having to change your life and having some hard things happen in order to reconfigure. What do you do to pause? What kind of practice do you have in the self-care space? You mentioned exercise. What else do you do, and would you recommend to others that could help them to be able to access their intention?
Mm-hmm. Exercise, yoga, meditation. I love reading a good book. I love watching movies. I love a good story. I get my relaxation and joy really um, curling up in front of the fireplace with a good book. There's nothing better, in my opinion. Um, Spending quality time with family. That's also very important to me. Your ecosystem, your support network, your support system is important. So.
And Michelle, you and I share something I think is a wonderful gift that many do and not all do. We have been married for a long time.
Yeah.
To partners who support us on our journey. And that is not always true. Even if you are married, it's not always true that you have that kind of support. You were married very young. Can you talk about just, there's this myth that if you are a professional woman, you cannot have a marriage, you cannot have children, there are all these things you cannot have. Mm-hmm. And it's just not necessarily true. How did you design your life so that you have what you do?
As I mentioned earlier, there was nothing, no decision that I've made that wasn't purposeful or planned. And that included getting married early in my 20s, to aspire to become a VP of a multinational organization, to move to Switzerland, or even to write a book. My spouse is an incredible individual. This is someone who talks about the collective we, not I or you. It's the collective we. And what that does in a marriage, at least in my view, is you do things as a team. Your success is my success, and vice versa. And so I think by having someone who's very secure with him or herself, whoever your partner is, when you have someone that's secure with who they are and their contribution to the marriage, and there's intention around communication, it works really well. And because I was married so young, I was in my 20s. I met my husband, I was 22. I got engaged at 23. I got married at 26.
Wow.
So we've grown up together, fundamentally speaking. So I think we've grown together. And so there's no one aside from my two sisters who knows me better than my spouse. He knows all the idiosyncrasies. He knows the good, the bad, and everything else in between. And so I've learned to appreciate the fact that I do have a partner who is my biggest cheerleader, who, when I go home at night and I'm having a bad day, that I can have that conversation with him. And he can do that with me as well. We don't have children, and that was by my design. We both agreed early on that we would be just a couple and not have a family. I was just one of those women who decided a long time ago that I mother a lot of other individuals. I don't necessarily have to become a mother myself in order to feel whole as a woman. And
Mhm.
so it was my decision, along with David, that we would not have a family. And so it's just been he and I for 27 years.
Which is a beautiful thing. And in my case, my husband and I've been married, I think it's 28 years, I think.
Yeah.
uh, and we do have a child who's 18. We were married, yes, it's 28 because we were married after we were married 10 years before she was born. I didn't plan on having children. That wasn't in my plan. So sometimes it's God's plan. And I see so many interesting twists and turns with people in their lives. I want to tell you that a friend of mine, a corporate executive, who I think she wanted to be married, but it didn't happen until she was 55. And she's in love like a teenager. And just saying this to say to folks, whatever you want, don't give up on it. And also be open to the surprises because sometimes surprises come. All right, I want to pivot because you work in a space that is on the tip of people's tongues now. It wasn't for a long time, but diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sometimes people say belonging. This topic has been a hot button literally like no other. I mean, I think a tipping point after the pandemic, because it was this recipe of the pandemic, everyone is at home. And then George Floyd was murdered, and corporations
Mm.
began to take heed of the need for equity and the need for fairness and treating people right. And do we do this? And I think there was a much longer period of paying attention to how other people are treated and how they fare in the world this time because of all the circumstances of our world. And so this examination of how are we doing
Mm.
as it relates to how we treat each other, and especially people who may be different from each other. The lens has been shining ever more brightly. And 2 years in, a lot of people are tired of it. Okay, we checked that box. We spent this money. I don't want to talk about it anymore. What? Why? One man said to me, because I work in this space as well. One man said, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Why can't we stop talking about it? We've talked about it for a few months. And they're like, Black people have been talking about it for 400 years. But anyway, uh, you had a
Very
couple of
true.
months.
Very true.
But for you, because you've been working in this space for a long time,
I have. Yeah.
what do you feel is different, good, bad, indifferent today compared to the many years that you've been in this space?
You know, Harriet, this work has evolved over the years. And unlike diversity of yesteryear, I think a lot of organizations have finally come to the resolve that DEI matters, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I refer to it as DEI.
Right.
And I think that many organizations um, over the past couple of years have been on this positive trajectory, which, in my view, has resulted in material progress year over year. And I think with the convergence of societal injustices like the George Floyd incident,
Yes.
um, and more recently, even the global pandemic, the discourse, the engagement of racial and social justice inside and outside of the workplace, this conversation has increased exponentially. And in
Yes.
recent years, there's been an increased level of consciousness around inequities that plague underrepresented communities. And there's been Me Too, the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter, Asian hate crimes, anti Semitic attacks, attacks
Yes.
on the trans community, and individuals in the LGBTQ community, and the list goes on. And in some cases, these inequities have made their way into our workplaces. And so these incidences across the global business landscape has also resulted in a call to action like I've never seen before. And so there's really been an uptick, to your point, in terms of the commitment on behalf of most companies and industries, which has led to more focused efforts around recruiting and retention and accountability and all these things. And there have been a number of public declarations and pledges and things that have been made by corporations. They're adjusting policies. There's a lot going on in this space.
Sure.
But to your point, the question now becomes, is this a moment or is this a movement?
Mm.
And I'm an optimist, and I choose to believe that this is now a movement. And I think that the incidences in society of that have occurred over the past 2 years or so,
Yes.
that's been the wake up call for a lot of organizations where people are now starting to turn the corner and understand that this is not a head count exercise of how many women, how many Black people, how many of this or that. It's no longer that they're starting to see and talk about this work as a business enabler. And there have been examples of organizations who haven't gotten it right, like Gucci and others, where they've had missteps from a marketing perspective. And my response to all of that is, well, who was sitting at the table when these decisions were made, or decisions were being made? So I think there's been a wake-up call over the past couple of years. So I'd say with this inflection point, we're taking advantage of it. And I think people who do what I do for a living, a lot of us are optimistic and hopeful that we will continue to be on this trajectory where DEI is the new Black again, where people now are starting to see it and understand it and talk about it as a business imperative, and that there's no turning back, at least from my perspective. For the company that I work for, one of the things that I've been incredibly impressed about during my interview process 2 years ago, and even more so now that I'm on the inside, that this is a critical business enabler that's not just about talent and culture. This is about our business. This is about our company and our impact on society, and making sure that historically underrepresented communities also have an opportunity to either work in our workplace and for us to help them figure out how they're going to find their place in society from a financial literacy perspective. And so having said all of that, I'm optimistic as a strategist, as a transformational specialist, as a change agent, and as a constructive disruptor in this place. This is not about me. This is about everybody else, and I'm loving the work right now.
So see, that's one of those drop the mic moments. Boom. With that, I want to remind you one last time, you are listening to Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole here on WBAI in New York City. That's 99.5 FM and everywhere online at WBAI.org. We are talking to Michelle Gadsden-Williams. She has written a book that you really need to read. It's called Driven by Intention. Own your purpose, gain power, and pursue your passion as a woman at work. And this book has just come out this week. It's fresh off the press, guys. You need to read it. The stories are there. Young people in your life, you really want to be able to share these stories with young people who are looking to pave their way, in particular because the stories really do show what life is like. They're not condensed so much that you go, oh, she worked here, and now she's the head of global whatever. No, the twists and turns, the challenges, the upsets, all the things that make up a life, getting a person to where she is, or what's in this book. And in a few minutes that we have left, we're going to talk about it some more. But I just want to remind you about that thumb drive that has so many women's stories on it, and remind you, in Women's History Month, here at WBAI, we're offering this to you to be able to listen and also share that with your loved ones by becoming a BAI buddy, making a contribution of $15 a month or more. $15 is really low. Think about how you spend $15, you guys. I'm not trying to count your money, but I guess I am. But $15 a month or more, you can receive this thumb drive filled with stories of women. And another woman who I know Michelle loves her work, as do I, Alice Walker, is featured on this thumb drive. And I mean, one of the greatest authors of modern times. And the piece that we know the best is The Color Purple, that has just been around the world in every different way, on Broadway more than one time. And she's just an incredible powerhouse and thinker and creator. And she's one of hundreds of women on this. So please call us at 212-209-2950. You can also go online at give2wbai.org. A donation of $15 or more a month will give you this wonderful thumb drive and a WBAI tote bag, and just our love to you in support of our beloved radio station. Michelle, the the stories
Mhm,
in this book
mhm.
help to lift people up when they need to be lifted.
Yeah.
I think that that is what I like about it the most, that you go, wow, that happened to her. And I bring it up because, and I mentioned this a little bit before, but I think it's worthy of mentioning again. Every single one of us has moments of vulnerability. Every one of us has moments when we feel like we're alone, that, that we can't. And I think what's really powerful about your book is that it shows women when they felt that way and how they were able to pivot. Would you tell us, because we said the categories of women, but who are some of the women who are featured? If you name them and tell us just a little bit about a few of them.
Absolutely. So I set out to talk to a diverse group of women about their intentions and their thought processes around actions and courage that have helped them to chart their course, their path. Some of these women are my old friends, and others are new. But I think the inspiring stories in this book are of real women. And some of these women are some of the most successful women of our day. And some of these women are, women like Melody Hobson, who is the president and co-CEO of the largest Black-owned asset management firm, Ariel Investments. So if you don't think you know Melody, you probably do. She's one of the preeminent experts called on by media to help explain money matters to the masses. This is a woman who grew up in Chicago, living in a small apartment, a child with idiosyncrasies. And she would later, all of these idiosyncrasies would later serve her well, and her to better understand what her purpose was in life. And that was to help people understand how to save for their financial future. And she's now incredibly successful. She's also married to George Lucas, who is the founder of Star Wars.
Exactly.
Sherry Salata, who I spoke about earlier, she was the former producer, executive producer of the Oprah Winfrey Show, and the president of Harpo Studios. Arlen Hamilton, another powerhouse. Now, her story is incredibly interesting. She did not have a college degree, nor experiences in financial services, but she had this insatiable curiosity that served her incredibly well. She wanted to raise capital for the historically undercapitalized. So she's a woman of the LGBTQ community, and she raises funding for Black and Brown individuals who are part of the LGBTQ community. At one point in her career, she fell on hard times. She was homeless, sleeping in airports, on friends' couches, and in Airbnbs. And now she has raised over $200 million
Wow.
for some of the most successful startups in the world.
Amazing.
Angela Yee, she's one third of the wildly popular morning show, The Breakfast Club, and she talks about living on her own and creating her own rules and living on her own terms. Mimi Valdez, who I believe you know,
I
Harriet.
do. I do.
Yeah, another writer turned producer behind the award-winning film Hidden Figures. So there's just a variety of women, diverse women from all different backgrounds, who are
Which
just telling their
um,
unvarnished, truthful stories.
I am so glad that you have written this book. So I'm reminding folks for the last time, first of all, just note this is week 1 of Michelle's book coming out. So I'm so grateful to you, Michelle Gadsden-Williams, for coming and sharing your story of your new book in the first week of its birth. I know what it takes to birth a book. The book is called Driven by Intention. Own your purpose, gain power, and pursue your passion as a woman at work. Language is everything to me, and those verbs are so strong. I think Michelle is telling us all, get out there, pursue that passion, make it happen. Let intention guide you. The intention comes from your soul. It comes from your soul. And thank you, Michelle, for doing the work, for figuring out a way to offer your wisdom and the stories that you've harvested with so many more people, because that's what books can do. They can reach so many people. We thank you, my friend. Good luck with everything, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, Harriette.
Well, everyone, you have been listening to Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole here on WBAI. Thank you for tuning in. Please pick up Michelle's book, Driven by Intention. Please call up and get your disc drive, your thumb drive with all the women's stories on it. WBAI's celebration of Women's History Month. Call us 212-209-2950. Until next time, it has been wonderful to be with you. Have a great day and make it count.